Judge Hilary Rapkin-Nyko ruled in favour of 10 Western Cape Correctional Service officials who had challenged the department's employment equity plans. In response, prison authorities welcomed the ruling, with Acting National Commissioner Notsinkelelo Jolingana saying that the department would appoint a team to review its policies with respect to implementation of the Employment Equity Act as directed by the court. Now, to take this discussion forward and to provide some clarity on the matter and some answers to it, we are joined in studio by Labour Analyst Jonathan Goldberg. Jonathan, good morning to you, or good afternoon rather.
Good afternoon.
Now, looking at this particular issue, what does this ruling mean to those officials who took the department to court?
I think this ruling goes alongside a number of rulings in this regard that have come out the Labour Court and the Labour Appeal Court. And the bottom line is, when you're employing employment equity policies and practices in organisations or in government departments, like in this case, you've got to do so in terms of the law. And the law says you've got to have a reasonable, rational plan that's got to be consulted on. And one of those consultation elements, which was the subject of this court case, was the national and regional demographics. You cannot only just use national demographics, this is the Western Cape, you've got to also take a blend of regional demographics in terms of the economically active working population. And it really means that when employers divert from the Constitution, which says you cannot discriminate, employment equity is a diversion, it's a piece of legislation put in place to redress the imbalances of the past. It must be done rationally, and it must be done objectively in terms of the Employment Equity Act.
Now, you mentioned rational plan. Are you suggesting that the plan is irrational?
Well, that's what the court's saying in a number of these judgments, that the plan will be tested. So when people like these 10 employees come and say they're not disadvantaged as a result of not being elected into positions, then the court will test the plan to see whether it's rational. And in this case, they found just by the department using the national demographics, the plan wasn't rational.
How will it benefit the employees directly that took the department to court?
I think it'll benefit them because they now become part of the pool, because if you look at national and regional demographics in the Western Cape, for instance, coloured people are more representative in the economically active working population. I think for us as a whole, for employers and for business and for government, it puts light on the fact that we've got to do employment equity correctly. There are major changes in the pipeline at the moment at the National Council of Provinces, on the way to the National Council of Provinces on employment equity, and even the implementation of that will have to be done properly, not just a tick box exercise.
Now, besides the Correctional Service Department, how balanced is the Employment Equity Act in general, and is it effective like it's meant to be?
I think there's a debate about whether you can get this effectiveness through legislation or you've got to get it through other particular means. And there's a debate internationally as whether you can achieve it through legislation. And I think that's one of the debates that needs to be had around the amendments, because in the proposed amendments going to the National Council of Provinces, I think on the way to Parliament, you know, we're talking about fines of up to 2% of turnover for non-compliant companies and departments.
Now, let's look at the targets for the department. The department's employee targets have been set at 79% African, 9% white, and 2.5% Indian, and about 9% coloured, in line with national demographics. Is this, in your view, a fair target going forward?
Well, I think that's the issue, and this was the issue of the court case. You cannot just blanketly say those are national targets. And I think that's where everyone misunderstands. You use the national and regional demographics to determine how underrepresented you are, and then find a plan of giving advantage to people where you're underrepresented. For instance, if you're overrepresentative Indian males and females, then you can't target them in the name of affirmative action. Or if you're overrepresentative in white females, then you cannot target them. You've then got to target over a period of time through skills, development, training and opportunities, the people that show underrepresentativity in using a combination of national and regional demographics.
But how do we redress the imbalances of the past while making sure that people are employed on merit and not on colour?
I don't believe anyone's really gone into the nub of the problem. And the nub of the problem, if I do the international research that I've done, you know, I think the only way you can really address the imbalances of the past is through popular education, training and development. I think that's core and key. And the real question we've got to be asking as all stakeholders in this particular country is, are we doing that correctly? Are we producing it at basic, at higher, at tertiary, at whatever level? Are we doing the right things to produce the calibre of people? Because it is correct. Unless the majority of the population participate actively in this economy, we've got trouble. We already have trouble.
Going back to this particular case, the acting commissioner says that the department would appoint a team to review the policies with respect to implementation of the Employment Equity Act. What are the chances that the policies would favour those who were affected before?
I think the issue is, if you're going to implement employment equity, it's a deviation from the Constitution. It must be done properly. So I welcome that the Commissioner is saying that, because he's taken the court case saying we've done it wrong, we haven't applied our minds correctly to this, we're going to do it properly going forward. Because again, we've had 20 years since 1994. I think if we'd all reflected and said if we'd done a couple more things properly, we'd be a lot better off than we are today. And I think that's what we've got to look at, saying whatever we do, let's do it properly so we can get the benefit. And the ultimate benefit of transformational legislation, the bottom line benefit, is getting more African, coloured and Indian people to participate in the mainstream of the economy.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. Very enlightening. That was Labour Analyst Jonathan Goldberg in studio with us.